Boy, cruisers, it has been quite the week in cruise news. From cruise ship brawls in unexpected places to controversy over late night pizza and other controversy related to pineapples, but not related to pizza, we're gonna cover it all. Welcome to my cruise pod. I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. And in this episode, it's packed with drama, changes, controversies, and all kinds of things to talk ship about. So let's get into it. First, I want to talk about the latest cruise ship brawl, because this is the thing that everybody always wants to know about when it happens. And unfortunately, it seems to be a recurring trend. Now, if I were to say to you, a cruise ship brawl happened, you probably would say, oh, let me guess. It happened on a Carnival cruise ship. And if you follow my content, you know I'm a Carnival girl, a Carnival apologist. I love Carnival, but I'll be the first to admit that, yeah, they are usually the usual suspect when it comes to cruise ship brawls. But surprisingly, this one didn't happen on a Carnival cruise ship. It happened on Royal Caribbean. And I'm not talking about your basic fight, right? Because verbal altercations happen probably on every cruise because people get hangry in that buffet and they get real upset when people cut them or they think they cut them. And even one-on-one physical altercations are not particularly uncommon. You've got thousands of cruises happening each month. You've got tens of thousands of people taking cruises each month. So it happens. I'm talking about a physical altercation involving lots and lots of people that goes on for an extended period of time. We're talking a full-on brawl. So this brawl happened on Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas. And what makes it surprising to a lot of folks is that it didn't happen on Carnival, which again, the usual suspect, and it didn't happen on an older, smaller ship. Because when you hear about cruise ship brawls, that's usually where it happens. If you just do a search for cruise ship brawl 24, because there's about one a month, to be honest, I hate to say, you're going to find them happening on Carnival Paradise, on Royal Caribbean's Independence of the Seas. These older, smaller ships. And there's a reason for that. Those older, smaller cruise ships tend to be put on smaller itineraries that are shorter and that are much more affordable. So that tends to attract a different type of clientele who may be more inclined to fisticuffs. These ships also do tend to be more booze cruisy, where because they are short, because they're basically out to the Bahamas or Mexico and back, people buy the drink package, they have a long weekend or 4 days on a ship, and they pound back the alcohol, and that results in some bad behavior. So the fact that this happened on Royal Caribbean and on Royal Caribbean's shining star of their fleet, which happens to be Icon of the Seas, is what really is kind of making headlines here. Now, I'll show you a little snippet of this, and this is courtesy of a poster on Instagram with the handle Only in Florida, and details are a little unclear. Now, this video was actually just posted on November 24th, I think it was, and I kind of read through some of the comments, and some folks commented, and they indicated that this happened on the Icon's November 16th sailing. So I don't know for sure if that's the truth, right? We just see comments on social media, and I did look, and Icon, they had a sailing out of Miami, only in Florida, I guess, November 15th, and it ended November 23rd. So the dates kind of aligned, but regardless, it happened recently. And the altercation reportedly started over some dispute, and it was at night, which is not surprising because that often happens, and it quickly escalated. And as you'll see from the clip, it ultimately involved multiple passengers. So videos of the incident have started to surface on social media. Again, this one's weird because it's a little bit delayed. I think people have been more immersed in the holidays and eating Thanksgiving dinner and spending time with their family. But this yet again sparks that debate about cruise ship behavior and how the behavior just kind of seems to be devolving. And again, this one's surprising because we usually see these things on Carnival and we usually see them on the older, smaller ships. Now, when you're talking about a mega ship like Icon of the Seas, we're talking a lot of passengers, like 7,500 people. So I get it. Managing that many people can be really challenging. But here's where I think the failing was. And if you look at the video, I want to know if you agree with me. Royal Caribbean security does intervene, but they're kind of sluggish and they're kind of weak in doing so. Now, I don't expect cruise ship security guards who are woefully underpaid, like all cruise ship staff, to literally come out guns blazing. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're not even allowed to have guns on the ship, but I don't know for sure. But I do expect maybe a stronger, impressive enforcement effort. And what happens with these cruise ship incidents is often they start with just two people yapping. Then maybe even that escalates to physical altercation with two people. But then other people get involved, it grows. As we've seen with a lot of the Carnival altercations, security is very slow to respond. And by that point, it's ballooned into a full-fledged brawl. But in this case, you see security trying to intervene, but it looks very, I'm trying to be polite here, very ineffective. I mean, my grandma, I think, could do a better job trying to break up this fight, and she's 87 years old. So I think security kind of dropped the ball here. Now, I know there are limitations, but there has to be some solution. I do think better enforcement is important, and I actually have a whole video about Carnival's brawl problem. I'll actually drop that link down in the description if you want to go check that out, because I have a lot of thoughts on it, why that tends to happen on Carnival, what I think they can do about it. But I'll just tell you in summary here, I think the cruise lines need to do a number of things to stop this from happening, because it's a bad look for cruisers. Every time a brawl happens, it goes viral. It even gets picked up in mainstream media. People look at that and think, why would I want to go on a cruise ship? It looks so trashy. This is trashy. I want to be safe on vacation, and I don't feel safe in this environment. So I really think cruise ships have got to do something, especially Carnival and Royal Caribbean. Sometimes you loyal to Royal folks, and I love you, and I love Royal Caribbean, but you sometimes have your nose in the air a little bit about superiority over Carnival. But honestly, in my opinion, Royal Caribbean is not that much better. And I like both of the cruise lines, but all of the cruise lines have got to do a better job at tamping down on these issues, or they're going to start alienating cruisers, or they're only going to start attracting people that think this kind of behavior is entertaining and like this kind of thing. And that's just going to continue to perpetuate it. I think cruise lines really need to beef up security, have a lot more security, have maybe beefier security, no offense to the guards in this case, or give them better training about enforcement mechanisms so they're not just kind of standing there doing this. That's not effective at all. I think they also need to be much more strict in punitive enforcement. Carnival already has enacted a $500 fine plus the cost of any damages for their cruisers who engage in physical arguments. And I think that's actually way too low. I think they need to hit people where it hurts in their pocketbook, up that fine significantly, enforce it publicly, kick people off the ship the minute this kind of thing happens at the next port of call, and they need to enact a permanent ban, which Carnival has allegedly done. But they need to be very public about it, because when this stuff happens, everyone has a cell phone. Everyone's on social media. Cruisers see it. Ooh, fight. Let me film it. Let me post it. And it goes viral. And the cruise lines are just kind of left stuck looking like they're not doing anything. So when they enforce these things, be public about it. Put out a press release of, yeah, a brawl happened on our ship, Icon of the Seas. Here's what we're doing to stop it. Here's what we're going to do to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen in the future. And then actually follow through with it. So I think the cruise lines could do a lot more here if they're serious about stopping this type of behavior. But I want to know, what do you think? Now, interestingly, when cruise ship brawls happen, they tend to happen in certain places. Not surprisingly, they often happen late at night. They often originate in entertainment venues, i.e. the club, and a lot of times they occur in late-night food venues, of which there are not very many. And that brings me to the next topic, which is Carnival's controversial decision to quietly eliminate their late-night pizza option. So if you've ever sailed on Carnival, you probably know that one of the fun things of staying up late and having fun is to enjoy that late-night pizza. It's traditionally been open until 4 a.m., so if you have a night in the casino, or you're watching the comedy shows, or you go to the club, or you're just kicking around with friends and you get hungry, everything else is pretty much shut down at that point, except for the good old reliable Pizza Pirate. So you head up to the Pizza Pirate, you wait in a really long line of people, but it's worth it because you're hungry and that pizza is so good and made to order, and you eat your food and go about your way. So Carnival has decided, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because brawls happen here. I don't know if it's because of cost, probably because of cost. But in yet another nickel and diming cut down cruise line thing, they're eliminating late night pizza. Now, Carnival pizza ends at midnight. Now, I'm pretty cool with a lot of the cruise line cutbacks. I'm a business professor. I get the whole economics of everything, but this is really one that's starting to feel frustrating. It's just cut after cut. And there's a point where cruisers are going to say, I love this cruise line, but you cease to be a good deal when you've cut all of these things. Now I can actually go for a higher priced cruise line that hasn't cut back on all of these things. So I think Carnival needs to be a little careful that the pendulum doesn't swing too far. And And again, I say this as a fan of Carnival. Now, in Carnival's defense, what they say is, well, you still have late night dining options. And that is true. In the last year and a half or so, they've brought back their late night snacks. Now, don't think it's anything like the old heyday of the midnight buffet, which unfortunately was before my time, but I hear was quite the extravaganza of amazing food displays, ice sculptures, chocolate fountains, you name it. This ain't it. It's a pretty sad buffet. I'll show you a clip from where I took some footage of it on a recent Carnival cruise a few months ago. And again, late at night when you don't have any options, sometimes this food hits, but it's just definitely not a high quality food. Now, Carnival will say, look, this is actually more variety. We're going to keep this open late. And pizza's just pizza. But the problem is, again, those late night snacks, it's always a mess. It looks kind of gross. As you can see, it's very picked over. There's not a lot of gluten-free options. I eat gluten-free. There's not a lot of choices here. And they put mayo in everything. And I'm not a mayo eater either. Now, I think this is a poor substitute. You can have either a handmade, fresh, made-to-order pizza, or you can have this picked-over, sad, late-night snack buffet. So a lot of folks are not happy about this change. Now, of course, there's always the people that jump to the defense of their favorite cruise lines. And the Carnival apologists are all saying, quit crying, you still have room service. You can get pizza with room service. And yeah, that's true. But like many of the other cruise line cutbacks, Carnival no longer offers free 24/7 room service. If you want a pizza, it's going to cost you $5, which to be fair is not bad. And I would not certainly hesitate to pay $5 to have a handmade fresh pizza delivered to my stateroom door. I do tend to tip, so that's going to be a $7 pizza for me. But the bigger issue is you'll be hard pressed to get any type of room service on Carnival after midnight without it taking a bare minimum of an hour. So this, in my opinion, is not a viable alternative. So a lot of folks are, in my opinion, understandably upset about this cutback, and they see this as another thing of this boiled frog principle. I have a whole video about this too. I'll put it in the comments about how cruise lines just keep making these cutbacks and they just keep doing it quietly. And there's a point where it feels like we're a frog in a pot. And, you know, the water turning up gradually, maybe we don't notice it. It's okay. They have to save money. They have to make up from post-COVID losses. But eventually you find yourself in a pot that's boiling and it's too late to get out of it. So I think the cruise lines have to be careful, especially Carnival, being known as the budget cruise line, with how they navigate this and to not make so many cutbacks that cruisers start to feel alienated. But what are your thoughts? Is pizza that big of a deal? Is this a ridiculous cutback? Is this going to change your perspective of Carnival? I really do want to know what you think about this issue. Next is another Carnival controversy, and the cruise news this week is heavily Carnival controversy. And this is related to the upside down pineapple. And this one actually shocks me, and I don't get shocked too often by cruise news. Now, if you aren't familiar with Carnival Cruise Line's brand ambassador, it's this really funny guy. He's British. His name's John Heald. He's kind of a Facebook cruise celebrity. He's really interesting and funny, and I love following him. And I've had a lot of exchanges with him online, and he knows I'm critical of Carnival, but I love Carnival too. And this one has me scratching my head. Now, a little bit of backstory. If you're newer to cruising, or maybe not, or you're just innocently unaware, I didn't know about this until maybe my 4th cruise. And yeah, on one of my first cruises, I wore a pineapple bikini. But apparently in cruise culture, there's an icon of a pineapple. And when that pineapple is upside down, that means that the person displaying that symbol is associated with the swinger community. Now, cruisers love talking about this, and you would think that because as much as cruisers talk about this, every cruise ship is just swinging like crazy and rocking that boat. But it's really not that common. It took me probably, I think, 24, 25 cruises before I ever actually saw that symbol on someone's stateroom door. So it's not as common as you would think. But what is interesting is this. On a recent Facebook post about something kind of unrelated, a commenter joked about the upside down pineapple. And John Heald, it was on his page, commented this. And I find this very interesting. John basically is saying, hey, as a cruise line, we're going to start removing this upside down pineapple decoration from cruiser doors. And that to me is crazy. Now, this immediately stirred up some controversy Fortunately, people screenshotted it. Of course, it started making the rounds. And it's interesting that John Heald then went in and deleted it. And as of the time of this video, at least from what I've seen, and I've actually asked him about it, he's ignored it and he is failing to respond, which makes me think that it is true. Now, to be fair, I have not seen this post with my own two eyes on Facebook on John's page, but I've heard from enough folks in my community that did see it that I believe that I do think it was posted, and I do think it is true. Now, whether or not Carnival continues with this, I think, misguided thing of we're going to take these pineapples off people's doors, whether they're going to actually do that, I think now they've realized, well, that's probably a bad move. We probably shouldn't do that because people are abuzz about it. And I think understandably so. In my opinion, while I'm not in that community, I think there's nothing wrong with that. Let people live their lives. Don't try to police how people choose to spend their free time behind the closed doors of a stateroom. The only defense that I've seen about this that I still don't agree with, but I at least can see where people are coming from, is that Carnival might have a leg to stand on with this because there is this thing where people think they're funny and they'll bring pineapple magnets and put them on people's doors, or people will see them on a door legitimately and move it and put it on someone else's door or their friend's door thinking they're funny. But I think this is a slippery slope, and I don't like the idea of a cruise line policing what consenting adults choose to do on their cruise. But I don't know. What do you think about this? Is this something that Carnival should ban? How do you ban a door decoration? How do you say an upside down pineapple is wrong, but an upright pineapple is a-okay? And I'm going to hit you with a trifecta of Carnival controversies. What's interesting about this next one is that it's actually not new. They've had this around for a while, but for whatever reason, people just started talking about it. And you know how social media does. It just kind of goes viral and people just can't stop talking about it. So this next issue is Carnival's ban on Bluetooth speakers. Now, I actually got to say, I'm usually pretty kind of neutral on a lot of these things, but I have some feelings on these Carnival ones. I think the pizza removal is dumb. I don't like it. I think the pineapple thing is dumb. I don't like it. But I do fully support this one. But I want to know what you think. So the decision for Carnival to ban Bluetooth speakers has come after years of lots of noise complaints from cruisers who want to enjoy their vacation. And for a lot of folks, that means quiet and relaxation. And so when you're on a cruise and you've got fellow cruisers that bring a portable Bluetooth speaker and use it loudly, often in shared spaces like pools, even their balcony or sun decks, it can be really disruptive. And so a lot of folks have gotten frustrated over the years. And I'll say I've cruised most of the cruise lines, and Bluetooth misuse does tend to happen more often on Carnival and Royal Caribbean. People like their music. And I don't mind it so much when I like the music, but if I don't like the music, I'm like, turn it off. Or if it's too loud or I'm trying to vibe. So personal devices like headphones and earbuds, those are of course still allowed. But this ban has kind of divided guests. Some folks are really upset about it, thinking, well, Carnival, you've got this emphasis of choose fun, of being a fun cruise line, and you're killing my fun by not letting me bring my speaker. And a lot of folks claim, well, I have my speaker, but I only use it in my stateroom, and I never play it loudly, so it's ridiculous for Carnival to not allow me to have it. But personally, I want to be able to enjoy my vacation. I think you can listen to most music on your phone at a volume that's low enough in your room to fill that need without having to have a Bluetooth speaker. Now, what's interesting, though, is that as of even a few weeks ago, Carnival actually sells Carnival cruise ship shaped Bluetooth speakers in their gift shops, in their fun shops. And at some point, that has also been a gift for certain loyalty tier levels. So I do think Carnival needs to not do that if they're going to tell cruisers that Bluetooth devices are prohibited. Is this a step in the right direction, or does this take away from the fun of cruising? I, for one, think it's a good move, and I welcome it. And finally, this is one that kind of slid under the radar, and luckily somebody emailed it to me, so I thank you for that. And this is Mexico's $42 passenger fee. And what's interesting is I think nobody's talking about this yet because I think it hasn't quite hit mainstream yet. But once it does, people are going to be thinking that this is a problem. But first, let me tell you about it. Mexico has proposed a $42 immigration fee. And this isn't just for tourists and travelers, but it is specifically targeted to cruise passengers. Now, it's not fully in effect yet, but it was approved by Mexico's lower house of Congress. And if it is enacted, this would charge this $42 fee to all cruise passengers, even if you stay on the cruise ship. So this policy, if it's approved by the Mexican Senate, would make Mexico one of the most expensive cruise destinations in the world. And I think this is a wild move. I think this is misguided. And what makes this issue particularly controversial is where the money is going to go. It's not going to go to improving the cruise port areas. And let me tell you, while I love Cozumel, there are some Mexican ports of call that could use the money. For example, Progreso. But instead, 2/3 of this revenue is going to go to the Mexican army. So there's a lot of questions about the motivation behind this and how the funds are actually going to benefit tourism. So there are some industry leaders, namely the Mexican Association of Shipping Agents, that are raising the red flag and saying this is not a good move. It's going to hurt Mexico's competitiveness in that Caribbean cruise market. Because for cruisers, that's going to mean much higher costs for itineraries with Mexican ports of call, like Cozumel, which I love Cozumel, and it's one of the biggest cruise ports in the world with over 4 million passengers annually. But I got to say, if you're cruising with a family of 4, and this one fee alone jacks up your price $168, that's pretty steep. And then if you're on an itinerary like I was recently that had 2 Mexican ports of call, I gotta tell you, if I'm pricing out cruise fares and my price for a family of 4 is $300-400 more, I'm gonna pick another itinerary. So I wanna know, how do you think this fee is gonna impact your travel plans? $42 a person when you visit a port of call in Mexico. Is this going to change your travel plans, or is this a reasonable price to pay for visiting Mexico? So from onboard dramas to controversy and policy, it has been a crazy week in cruise world. I want to know what you think about all these things. And of course, if you like this kind of content, visit my website at profmelissa.com. I got lots of great free cruise advice, free port guides, and everything in between. Until next time, happy cruising.